He just wanted to be ready for whatever happened, for anything. That was him, all right. Tyrell, something tells me I forgot to dig my well. There's something I should have done that I've missed, something we've got to think of or plan for. Tyrell, he just sipped his coffee, squatting there in his sock feet, feeling good to have his boots off. Don't know what it could be, Tyrell said. We've got rifles all around and ammunition to fight a war. At Fort Garry, Orrin will pick up some Red River carts and a man or two. He'll load those carts with grub and such. He pushed his hat back, sweat-wet hair plastered against his forehead. The stock are fat, 1,100 head of good beef, and we've gotten an early start. Don't make no difference, Tyrell. I've forgotten something. Or somebody. Wait till we meet up with Orrin. When he joins us at Fort Garry, he'll know right away if anything's wrong. I've been thinking about Fort Garry, Tyrell. Seems foolish to drive east even a little way when we've got to go back west. Tyrell refilled his cup and held up the pot. I shook my head. It's the boys, he said. This here shapes up to be a rough, mean drive. Oh, we'll see some new country, and mighty beautiful country. But any way you take it, it will be rough. We'd better give the boys a chance to blow off some steam. They'd better blow it careful, I said. Some of those Canadians are mighty rough. Nice folks, but they can handle themselves. Low clouds blotted out the stars. Wind whispered in the grass. Sleep was needed, but I was wakeful as a man with 3 sparkin-age daughters. You were there when the word came, Tyrell. Do you figure there's more to this than Logan let on? You know Logan better than I do. He cut his stick for trouble before he was knee-high to a short hog, and you know any time Logan calls for help, there's no telling what's involved. There's mighty little in the way of trouble Logan can't handle all by himself. He never lied to us. He never lied to nobody. Nolan and Logan have done things here and there that you and me wouldn't, but they never broke their given word. Tyrell bedded down, but I lay awake, trying to think it out, tired though I was. We were pushing 1,100 head of fat steers across the Dakota plains, headed for the gold mines in far western Canada. The Dakota country was new to us. Wide plains, but good grass so far, and we'd been lucky enough to come upon water when needed. Cap Roundtree had been up this way before, but aside from Tyrell, who had been marshal of a gold mining town in Idaho, none of us had been so far north. We'd put the herd together in a hurry because Logan was in need, and started the drive short-handed, which meant extra work for all. Orrin was coming up by steamboat and was to meet us at Fort Garry for the long drive west. Those to whom we'd talked, who might or might not know what they were talking about, said there were no towns to the west. There were trading posts here and yonder, however, one of them being Fort Whoop-Up. Even about that we heard 2 stories. Some said it was simply a trading post, but others said it was a hangout for rustlers, whiskey peddlers, and the like. If it was kin to such places as we'd known, it could be both. We Sacketts had come west from the Tennessee-North Carolina country in search of new lands. Ours had been among the earliest folk to settle back yonder, but somehow we stuck to the high-up hills where the game was and let the good bottom lands slip away to latecomers. Most newcomers to the west found the life hard and the ways rough, but to mountain-bred folks it was no different from what we were accustomed to. Any time a Sackett had meat on the table, it was likely to be meat he'd shot, and if Pa was away from home, it was we youngsters who did the shooting. Those who lived round about used to say that Sacketts and shooting went together like hog meat and hominy. Stock driving had been our way of life since first we settled in the hills. It was old Yance Sackett who began it some 200 years back, and he started it with turkey drives to market. After that, it was hogs, and, like turkeys, we drove them afoot for the most part. If you had turkeys or hogs to sell, you just naturally drove them to market, or sold them to a drover. Word came from Logan just after we'd sold 900 head of prime beef in Kansas. We'd actually sold 1,400 head, but some of the stock belonged to neighbors. Cap Roundtree, Tyrell, and I were at a table in the drover's cottage when that man with the green eye shade came up to me and said, "Mr. Sackett, this here message come for you a day or 2 back. I reckon it's important, and I just now heard you were in town." "Cap," I said, If you and Tyrell will pardon me, I'll just see what this is." "Shall I read it?" Tyrell asked me. "You might," I said, and was glad for the offer. When it came to schoolin', I'd come up empty, and whilst I was learning to read and write, I was mighty short on words. There were still a good many I'd never driven into the corral to slap the brand of memory on. Tyrell had only learned to read a short time back, but he could read handwritin' as easy as print, nigh as good as any schoolmarm. He opened up that message like he'd been gettin' them every day. He looked over at me. "Listen to this," he said. "William Tell Sackett, Drover's Cottage, Abilene, Kansas. I taken money to deliver several hundred head of beef cattle before winter sets in. I got no cows. I got no money. I can't get away to help. Withouten they get them cows, folks will starve, and I'll be wearing a rope necktie. Logan. P.S. You can expect Higginses."
"Higginses,"
Cap said.
"I thought you'd done rolled up their carpet."
By Higginses he means we can expect trouble. For some reason he didn't want to say that, but he knew we'd understand. "Those Higgins boys were rough," Tyrell said, "and we sure didn't dust off all of them. They were good folks, only we just didn't get along. Fact is," he added, "there was one of those Higgins gals who used to give me the big eye back yonder in school. Boy, was she something. She'd give me a look out in those big blue eyes, and I wouldn't know come hither to go yonder." Cap, he was a-settin' there looking at me out of those wise old eyes.
"He wants beef cattle, and we've just sold our stock. We got a piece of money, but we ain't got near enough to buy at these prices. So what do we do?"
"We've got to buy," I said.
"We haven't got enough to buy, let alone to feed ourselves from here to Canada. It's a far piece."
Whilst we ate, I did some studying. The thought of not doing it never entered our minds. We Sacketts just naturally stood by one another, and if Logan was in trouble, we'd help. Undoubtedly, he'd given his word to deliver cattle, and a Sackett's word was his bond. It was even more than that. Anywhere a Sackett was known, his name was good for cash in the hand. This was going to take every cent we could put our hands on, and worst of all, we had to move. Cap put down his cup.
"Got me an idea,"
he said, and was gone from the table. "This couldn't come at a worse time," Tyrell commented. "I need all I've got to pay debts back in Santa Fe." "Me too," I said, "but Logan's in trouble." "You believe he meant that about hanging?" "Logan is a man who takes hanging right serious, and he wouldn't joke about it. If he says hanging, he means just that." For a moment there I paused, looking into my coffee. From that remark about Higginses, we can expect trouble along the way. "Sounds like Logan figures somebody doesn't want the cattle to get through." Tyrell glanced over at me. "Which doesn't make a lot of sense." Cap was coming back into the room, followed by a straw-hatted sodbuster wearing shoes. Farmers were beginning to settle around, but a man didn't see many of them yet, and almost never in the drover's cottage.
"Set, Bob, and tell him what you told me,"
Cap said. Bob had wrinkles from squinting at the sun and wrinkles around his eyes from laughing. "My cousin's come down from the north, lives up on the Missouri near Yankton. He was telling me about some Indian cattle, and Cap here, he overheard us." "Indian cattle?" "Well, some of them. Quite a few years back, two brothers brought some cattle into the Missouri River country. One of the brothers was gored by a steer, and by the time the other one found him, he was in bad shape. Blood poison or whatever. He lasted a few weeks, then died. The brother took the body back home for burial, and when he came back he was crossing a stream when his horse fell with him. Both of them lost, horse and man. So those cattle run wild. The Injuns around there are mostly friendlies, and they killed a steer time to time, but those cattle have run wild in some of the gullies leading back from the river. I'd say if anybody has claim on them now, it's those Injuns." "But would they sell them?" "Right now they would. They'd sell, and quick. You see, the Sioux have been raiding into their country some, and just now the Sioux learned about those cattle. They'll drive them off, leaving the friendlies with nothing." If you were to go in there and